First of all, I just want to say thank you to Terry and all the volunteers who invited me here today. Thank you for inviting me, but also thank you very much for putting together this modern day salon where people come to discuss public issues. I think it's just fantastic, and I'm really, I've been a big supporter for a long time, which is how you get invited, okay, as a guest. Tonight's topic is really dear to my heart, and anybody who knows me would know that. The role of media in a democratic society. I've been a political journalist for more decades than I care to admit, here or anyplace else. And I've had the very good privilege, and it really has been a privilege, to cover municipal, Ontario, and Ottawa politics on Parliament Hill. I spent some time on Parliament Hill. Liked Ontario better and came back. But to me it is the best job in the world, and it's despite the changing media political landscape, and boy, it really has changed. I feel really lucky. This is what political journalism really is. We are a cog in the democratic process. We are a very important cog in the democratic process. Not me, Sue Kelly, or anybody else. It's not about us as individuals, but what it's about is we serve the public, and that's all we serve. We don't serve any political party. We don't serve, this is a true journalist, does not serve any political ideology. We may have opinions, but we don't put it out in our work unless it's in a column, and it's clearly labeled that way. So we have no loyalty to anybody other than the public. That's because without factual, clear information, the public cannot make an informed decision on what kind of society it wants to live in. Therefore, what kind of society it wants to build, therefore, who it votes for at election time. Excuse me. So our job as political journalists is to put the information out there. The public decides, that's up to them. Now, the media has changed dramatically in the last 15 years or so, as you all know, due to the internet, but it's also, and I'll get into that in a few minutes, but it's also due to fewer and fewer dollars that media organizations are willing to spend on reporting. Yes, many private media organizations, newspapers in particular, are bleeding money. There's no question about that. As they move to the internet, the old model, as everyone knows, is broken, where advertisers are paid to put ads in papers. That model's gone. So everybody's trying to move to the internet, and in my opinion, they've been really slow about this, way too slow. Move to the internet so that they try to monetize what they're doing. However, I get pretty suspicious of this, crying about there isn't any money, when I see the CEOs of those same news organizations that are cutting hundreds of frontline journalists and editors and fact checkers, and I see those CEOs getting 50% increases in their already huge salaries. National Post, come on down. When they do, chop all these journalists and fact checkers, that's every PR person's dream, frankly, and it's every journalist's nightmare. So speaking of politics and public relations, the exponential explosion of dollars in hiring spin doctors, and I do not use the term for tonight's guest. I'm talking really about the people who work directly for the politicians. If you look at the number of people that are in the press gallery federally or the press gallery here in Ontario, and then you counted up the number of paid political PR staffers, not just for parties, not just for the ministers, but in the bureaucracy as well, you would be shocked at how outnumbered we are. It's amazing we get any stories out at all. So that's a huge problem. Here's some examples of what we have to try and wade through every single day just to get some simple facts out. Keeping reporters in a lockup on false pretenses, as the Harper government did several weeks ago, in order to stop them from reporting on a conservative initiative before the Harper spin doctors could get their version out while they were in the lockup, and not giving them the information in the lockup that they had been promised. Well, that's welcome to Parliament Hill. Dumping thousands and thousands of documents or bad news announcements on late on a Friday afternoon, well known as the news dump. Oldest trick in the book, but it happens all the time. Governments do it all the time. Using news footage that belongs to news organizations without their permission, taking it out of context, putting it in political ads. Omnibus bills that run to hundreds and thousands of pages long, that have things hidden in them that have absolutely nothing to do with what the bill is supposed to be on. The new powers, you might have read the story this week about the new powers that CSIS is getting, that they can ask the Canada Revenue Agency for financial information about anybody that they want if they may think that maybe that person might be involved in a criminal activity. Used to have to be, until this came out, this was hidden in the budget bill. Okay, and an enterprising reporter finally got it out. The budget, came down months ago. Somebody finally found it. Lying straight out, not just to reporters, but to elected MPPs. Lying to them and saying that money that was being passed, that they were voting for in Parliament, was for security for the G8 and G20. And finding out that, well, guess what? It was actually pork barreling money that Tony Clement spread around his riding and built gazebos and things like that. They lied about what that money was for to MPPs. I think that was, when did that come down? The 1300s that they were supposed to stop doing that, I think? So these are the kinds of challenges that we face every single day when we're just trying to get through the PR nonsense and bringing just the facts. The move to the internet, that's been a blessing and a curse, I think. Information is spread across the world in a matter of seconds. Fantastic. But so is misinformation, as we all know. How many celebrities have been reported dead? They're still alive. And this is invaluable, though, to the democratic ideals when it comes to get information out. I'm thinking particularly of Twitter. Really invaluable the way Twitter was used during the Arab Spring, for instance. When dictatorships had shut down the traditional sources of information, reporters couldn't get information out, but people could get it out through Twitter. And we wouldn't have known much about what was really going on without that. Blogs, Twitter, as I said, and social media have enabled anybody also to express their opinions in real time for the world to see and consider. That's a real blessing. But I would maintain the curse of this is that stating opinions is different from reporting, which on the internet is a whole other ballgame. And call me crazy, call me old-fashioned, but it's amazing to me how some people can just start reporting and call themselves a citizen journalist without having any training whatsoever. And what that really means is often what you're being told has no verification whatsoever. So nobody knows what is true, because reporters are taught to double source, triple source before they put stuff out. If that's okay, I have a good plan for my retirement, and I'm going to become a citizen surgeon. Who needs training, right? I could make a lot of money that way. We can't blame the rise of the internet, though, on everything that's happening in journalism and all the interferences in delivering, the facts the public needs. Let's face it, some of it is absolutely self-inflicted. I'm thinking of the Brian Williams story that has come out. The Amanda Lang fiasco. I hope you're tweeting on this back there. The Amanda Lang fiasco to the downright dangerous situation with Gianco Masci. There's obviously, to me, a crying need out there for a sweeping change of leadership at the top of many news organizations. In my view, Brian Williams should have been fired immediately. So should have Amanda Lang, immediately. And Jian Ghomeshi should have been fired the second that he sexually harassed a CBC employee. Frankly, there is absolutely no excuse. They wrote the rules. They knew what the rules were. The rules are sacrosanct when it comes to their dealing with the public. And when it comes to journalism, it's journalism 101 here, you know? So here's what the rules are. 1, don't lie to the public. 2, don't be in a personal relationship with a board member of the institution you're covering without recusing yourself from covering that story. Don't then write an op-ed defending that said institution. And don't sexually harass women. How hard is that? We all know those are the rules. So, and in past times, because I'm old, I can tell you this, they would have been shown the door within hours. Within an hour of management verifying the facts of those transgressions, they would have been shown the door, they would have been walked out with security and told you can come back later with security and clean up your desk, but you're going. There would have been no question about it. So in my view, journalistic ethics starts at the top, and if you can't fire someone who breaks the rules, you need to go. I believe there's a real cleanup that's needed at the top of some of Canada's most powerful news institutions. Hire ethical leaders, the rest will follow. Unethical behavior will not be tolerated. So just to mention a bit of a wrap up, the importance for me of what political journalism does hit me several years ago. I've been a journalist for a few years, and I'd spent several months in Romania just after the Berlin Wall fell. My husband and I were there to adopt a fabulous daughter. And we were in Bucharest, and Bucharest, we were told, it was once so beautiful, it was called Little Paris. Just magnificent. And then the totalitarian Russian communist regime took it over. Nicolae Ceausescu raised all the beautiful buildings, decreed every woman had to have a minimum of 6 children, and if you were married and weren't pregnant within 6 months, every 6 months you had to go for a gynecological examination to figure out why you weren't. Scammed people's land and money, and he built himself 26 estates, and the one I saw had toilets made of gold. And meanwhile the people were starving. And it was in that moment that I understood the fragility of democracy and just what it takes. It just takes the wrong people to get into power, and democracy can be wiped out within a generation, or really within a week actually. So I came back from Romania very determined to spend my career trying to get information about what was going on in our political system out to the public. And I would just like to say that for this I am very grateful also. When I look at where journalism is, it's in bad shape in a lot of ways, but there are some bright lights. And I am very grateful to Edward Snowden, for instance. And Glenn Greenwald, who got that information, and I'm going to put in a plug here for Citizen 4, the documentary. Can you guys hear me? The documentary that's been playing at the Bloor Cinema, and I think at TIFF as well. If you see one documentary in your life, I would say go to see that. Incredible. I'm grateful to the Michael Harrises and Lawrence Martins of the world, whose books Party of One and Harperland warn us of the pressure to decrease our democratic freedoms. And I am grateful for those 3.7 million people who marched in the streets of France to say they were not afraid to those who killed the satirists at Charlie Hebdo magazine. So we need that kind of support for the media here, because these are, I believe, extraordinary times. I believe our democracy is under real pressure right now. Many changes that, you know, I don't even recognize the country from when I was a child. Some of our freedoms that are being curtailed. So anyway, I just hope there's a lot of support for the media and the job that we do. Thank you.